Welcome to the Thinklings podcast, a conversation where good thoughts help renew the mind with the Word of God. I'm Charlie Carter, and I'm here with Tim Little and Andy Stearns. Let's jump into the conversation.
Welcome to the Thinklings podcast. I've got Charlie Carter drinking some coffee and choking on it.
That's what happens when you try to make sound effects.
And Andy's pouring himself a cup here.
That was a funny moment there. Wow. I think the coffee tried to kill Charlie.
And it almost succeeded. And we're happy to be together here and talking about some books and going to spend some time in God's Word. So how are you guys doing?
I think we're doing better than you, Tim. You sound like you're still...
I'm pretty good.
Okay. Your voice sounds higher.
Yes.
You're not as much of a, was it a bass or a baritone or whatever?
Yeah. So I'm doing a lot better from a health perspective. My stamina is still a little bit low.
Okay.
But
it's nice, listener. We're actually all in the same room. We haven't been all in the same room for
quite a while.
It's got to be like half a dozen episodes at least. So This is nice. Yeah, this is nice.
So what do we have going on today? Is there special business that we need to do?
Do we have some Thinklings business to tend to?
Do we have some Thinklings business to tend to? Does that apply to this one, though? Because it's a little different. We don't have that today.
It's Thinklings business, all right. I love it.
Books and business.
Listener, I love it when Tim is the host in the summers. It is like my favorite. Tim, I'm not trying to put you on the spot very much, maybe just a little bit. So, all right, Thinklings listeners, we have a special books and business today. A friend of mine, a longtime listener of the podcast, and someone who we'll call Dr. Vidya. Not his real name, but I think that's a good name for him, Dr. Vidya. He was thinking, the Thinklings really, really enjoy the Inklings. And the Inklings, we've talked about them a lot, are Lewis and Tolkien and Williams and Barfield and some of the other writers at that time that would meet together and push each other to write. And so Dr. Vidya decided that he would order and send the Thinklings some Inklings books.
Ooh.
So what we're going to do today is, I know what these books are because I was given them. And so I'm going to reveal them to my co-hosts. And then we just have to fight over who gets what book. The only thing I would say is I think we should try to read these and give a quick review on the podcast. So book number 1, Charlie, can I get a drum roll, please?
Insert drum roll sound.
Okay, that'll actually be good enough.
I won't, but...
No. Every time. I want you to say, insert drum roll sound. All right.
Insert drum roll sound.
The first book is Reason and Beauty in the Poetic Mind by Charles Williams.
Ooh.
Now, do either of you know anything about this book?
Not about the book. I know a little bit about him.
Yeah, I thought you're the Charles Williams guy at the table, I would say. You've also read Poetic Diction, Owen Barfield.
By Owen Barfield.
Tim, do you own it or have you read it?
Poetic Diction?
Yeah.
That's his copy.
That's your copy. Okay. So anyways,
To clarify, I'm pointing to books on Tim's shelf, and there's Poetic Diction to my left by Owen Barfield.
And I have read probably about half of it. I got bored after a while.
Okay.
It's a toughie.
So this one, I'm just going to walk through the table of contents really fast. The Ostentation of Verse, The Analysis of William, What is Beauty? These are chapter titles. Reasoning But to Err, The Essay on Man. The Evasion of Identity, Spencer. The Evasion of Identity, Part 2, The Nightingale and the Grecian Urn. We're on chapter 7, A Lady's Eyes. Chapter 8, The Deification of Reason. That sounds interesting. Number 9, The Abolition of Significance. And number 10, The Dispersal of Mist. So I'm not really sure what that's about, but it sounds fascinating. It's a reprint from 2007. So that's on the table. That'll be up for grabs.
It's actually by Charles Williams.
It's by Charles Williams.
Commenting on things.
Yep. And there is a foreword by Brian Horn, which I don't know who that is. Yeah, go for it. So that one, listener, when you get new books, it's just fun to talk about them and look at them. So that one's an updated copy. Whiff and Stock published that or printed that in 2007. So it's an older book, but it's like a reprint. So anyways, that's up for grabs at the table, but maybe wait till you see all 5. Next
There's
one.
5 of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis. And this is I have these all written down here. This is a 1959 copy by Fontana Books. And it's currently $7 online. if this was the early American printing of 1946, it would be worth $130. Now, this one, I've not read The Problem of Pain. That's really funny.
I haven't either.
I've read a bunch by Lewis, but I haven't read this one because I'm not the best Lewis scholar as I should be. So I definitely think I would be interested in this one. But do you know who he dedicated The Problem of Pain to?
I do not. To the Inklings.
So I think that's why Dr. Videa bought this one, because this is actually dedicated to the Inklings. So, and I believe this was printed in the UK. I could be wrong about that. All right, now this one, I have my eye on it. I just want you guys to know this. I have this one. I think I really want this one. Broadcast Talks by C.S. Lewis.
Ooh, which is...
Go ahead, Charlie, go for it.
Which is actually what was rebranded as Mere Christianity.
Exactly, yeah. And so if you look at this, I mean, you can see this is a really old book.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So you go in here, and it is first published in 1942, July. It was reprinted in January 43, so like 6 months later, and it was reprinted again in September of 43, and that's this printing.
Oh, wow.
And so this one is...
third printing.
Mm-hmm. So there's Broadcast Talk, there's Christian Behavior, there's one other, and all three end up becoming Mere Christianity.
All right, listeners. That is a spicy book.
I know. I mean, look at it. Just feel it.
It's so cool.
Give it a description.
So this was actually what I'm holding was published 80 years ago.
80 years ago. That one, I believe, is the UK published.
So September of 1943.
Yes, that was published.
That
in
is
London.
wild.
Yep. That thing is really awesome.
And so you mentioned The Problem of Pain was worth $7.
Yeah, this one is.
This has to be.
No, $7.65.
This?
Yeah. In fact, I looked, and
there can't be that many of these in circulation.
Well, you can buy that for $7.65 USD, shipped from Auckland, New Zealand.
Really?
Now, I was looking through this. If you had this edition here, Charlie,
the OG,
that has all of them, and it's in good condition, it would be going for, I think, 80 or something like that.
It's just cool because nobody knows. Everybody has heard of Mere Christianity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's just a cool little historical note that it actually wasn't mere. It was Broadcast Talks.
Yeah.
It was radio broadcast.
Yeah. The cool thing about the Broadcast Talks,
which
go ahead.
Can I insert this?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Means that we're not the first Inkling/Thinkling to do podcast things.
That's right. Back radio would be very similar, except it's usually live. So.
Yes.
So
does that make this dead?
Well, no, actually, they were pre-recorded.
All right, what else?
So one more thing about the Broadcast Talks, Tim. So the Broadcast Talks he was contracted by whoever made those to write talks to appeal to the British people for Christianity during the wartime.
Yeah. And
so it was like purposely, like it was a type of an apologetic or not really evangelistic, but like an apologetic type of a radio program. So anyway, so that one's kind of spicy. I'm not going to be sad if one of you take it, but I think that one would look cool in my thing. Now the next two, I have some suspicions about. All right. This book is called Smith of Wootton Major.
Oh yeah.
And Farmer Giles of Ham. Yeah, see, I knew Charlie would know right away what it is.
So I'll just insert right now. I would love that one because that is a title I don't have in my massive Tolkien library.
Ooh, well, I think this one and I think the next one you're going to really want. So this one's like, it's funny. This is only $7, but look at that one. That edition is $88. So this is the same edition. It's just not worth as much, and I'm not sure why. So anyways, but I don't know anything about this. Charlie, do you know anything about this? There are fun pictures in here.
So Tolkien had, and actually this is true of handfuls of the Inklings. They had like a lot of shorter writings and a lot of essays, and then even a lot of short fiction that they wrote. And Barfield would be true this way. He's got a handful of really short fiction works. And Tolkien is obviously famous for The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, but he had a handful of little short story fictional things like this too. Leaf by Niggle.
I've not read it. I have
a copy of it, but I didn't. So the the Rabbit Room Press, they do like their Hutchmoot every year, and they did like a big thing on Leaf by Niggle a few years ago, and so I got a copy PDF, but I never went through the stuff.
Okay. And I should say, speaking of, there a number of these are just available as PDFs online.
Yeah. So, it's just cool to have the old covers and all that.
Yeah, listener, it's hard because you can't see these covers. They're really cool.
Maybe we can send some snapshots of them and give them to Sydney and put them in our posting.
And put them up. That'd be kind of good.
Yeah.
All right, now here is the last one. And this is the one I think I know who's going to jump on this one. This is called The Silver Trumpet by Owen Barfield.
So, Andy,
do you have this one, Charlie?
I already have that. Yeah.
You do? Do you have this exact?
Published in 1924 by Owen Barfield, and famously the Tolkien children's favorite children book.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
So you have the copy that looks just like this one.
I'm not sure exactly what copy I have.
Okay.
But I have mine has a dust jacket artwork thing on it.
So this one I was also interested in, but it's got this cool embossed or something trumpety dude, and then the side's kind of cool, and
it has the map.
Yeah, this is really cool. The map. Go
to the back. So that right there, that's a fold out map to your right.
Oh, you're kidding! You're right.
Just like Lord of the Rings.
You have this edition, don't you?
Or similar,
right, Charlie?
I think so.
Okay, so here's why I'm.
So like that's just like Tolkien's Mordor. It like completely unfolds. Have you not seen that yet?
No.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay, so here's the cool thing.
You guys are awesome.
There's like a couple of things. And
this is wonderful.
Hold on, I forgot to bring the stick-it note. Sorry, the post-it note. Sorry, we have I don't know if I think he's a listener. Pastor Jay Chapman. I used to always call them post-it notes, and then Jay Chapman, now pastor in Carroll, Iowa, he was in our church, and he ran our kids ministry for years. And he would always talk about we need to order more like post-it notes in these little Ziploc bags of tools we would use with the kids.
Yeah.
And he calls them stick-it notes.
Stick-it notes.
Yeah, and so it's stuck. I just
sticky quips.
Stick-it notes. Sticky notes and post-it notes is what I'd heard. I never heard stick-it notes. So anyways, this one, hold on just a second here. I got to pull up Dr. Videa's text feed. He sent the picture to me. It had this post-it note in it. This is a cute book and nobody's even read it! ! And then it's signed Judith.
Well, someone has read it, Dr. Videa, and his name is Charlie Carter.
But the other cool thing about this one, and I don't know, is this one was published by Erdman's in Grand Rapids.
Oh.
So this is an Erdman's publication from, let me get that, 1968.
Yeah.
But...
Oh, wait, what did I say, 1924?
Well, that was probably original.
That was the original.
Was it original?
Yeah, that was what it said. I believe that. You nailed it. 1925. So you got it.
And so like this is a story that he wrote like in their college days, like because he would have met Lewis Barfield, would have met Lewis. Yep, they would have been in their 20s.
Yeah.
Something in there.
So the cool thing is this one has a sticker in the front cover. It says Church Library, Woodlawn Baptist Church, Little Rock, Arkansas. This book presented by Mr. and Mrs. Tom Pack. So anyways, he bought this, Dr. Videa, online, and he said that one's probably worth a pretty penny. And so I've looked this one up. Well, if you rebought it, you'd have to spend that much. $223.
That copy?
This one, he didn't spend that much. I think he got it for a little over 100 or whatever.
I can't remember what I paid for my copy. I don't think mine is that like purple violet cover color.
Yeah.
I'll look at and I don't remember mine having that like almost embossed engraving on the front or the side. Yeah. But yeah, so there was a while there where I really delved into Owen Barfield.
Yeah,
we've talked about Night Operation, one of his short little fiction works, which was published by his grandson, recently, in the last like 20 years. It's like kind of like Christopher Tolkien, like finding his father's writings and collecting. And so Owen Barfield Jr., the grandson of Owen Barfield, put all which Owen Barfield Sr., the guy that wrote this, I think lived into the 90s. He was ancient.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah.
And so he has that. He's got this other little short story novel, Eager Spring, And then he's got and then you stumble onto this and you're like, what in the world? And I think it's funny. So you have the silver trumpet, and then his like best friend Lewis writes this little children's story, and then he has a book called The Silver Chair. And it's just like, I know. And so like we're all ripping each other off. There's a quote in the letters of Lewis or the letters of Tolkien where they're talking about George MacDonald. And in Phantastes, there's like the ash tree that like comes alive and like walks around, and they have to be careful of the tree. And they start talking about like druids or dryads, like the living tree people. And this would be the inspiration for the Ents, by the way. And Lewis said something about like, he made some quip about like, I think it's okay to take it from the Greek mythologies. Like, I don't like we're not stealing it, you know, like it's not original with them, you know, like things have been around forever. People talking about walking trees. And
there's nothing new under the sun.
I did ask that. So, okay, this is just like 3 layers deep on like some crazy stuff. This is really cool. So in that talk I did yesterday at IRBC, I was making a distinction between created beings, like something is a being versus a created entity. So like a human is different than a rock. Like we have a soul.
Oh, we have beingness.
We have sentience.
Yeah, we have beingness.
And then I asked them, do you want me to tell a really bad joke? And they're like, yeah, tell a bad joke. And I was like, you won't even get it. You won't even think it's funny. And they're like, tell it anyway. And I'm like, well, when I say created entities, I'm not referring to walking trees of the Tolkien lore. I'm speaking of like things that aren't personal beings, and none of them got it. Like entities. Anyway.
I got it.
Yeah, you get, and there was like 2 people. Greg Gosnell in the back of the room, I think, chuckled.
So, just a quick FYI to piggyback on that, Charlie. Out of the Silent Planet.
Yeah.
Okay. The note at the beginning: certain slighting references to earlier stories of this type, which will be found in the following pages, have been put there for purely dramatic purposes. The author would be sorry if any reader supposed he was too stupid to have enjoyed Mr. H.G. Wells' fantasies, or too ungrateful to acknowledge his debt to them.
Yep.
And so right there he says, yeah, I'm doing this, but by the way, like I'm getting a lot of this idea from Wells and the War of the Worlds and all that time travel stuff.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So that was pretty good. So anyways, listeners, we're going to parcel these out amongst ourselves. Do you guys have like a decision you want to make, or we'll just do that later?
Well, you want the silver
I think
trumpet.
you need to read the Silver Trumpet to your kids.
I will say Evan saw that and he really wanted to read it. And I said,
only caveat
is
just like you did the voices in the Lord of the Rings, you have to do the sounds.
Okay.
And it'll take, I would preview it before you, because you have to, it'll take a moment for you to realize what's going on.
Plan my sounds out. Okay.
But yeah, your kids will love it. Like Tolkien's kids love that book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that's fine. I didn't know if that's enough. I
already
have it. So, okay, that's fine. Well, I didn't know if you want this specific historical copy.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It is what it is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I would love Smith of Wootton Major and Farmer Giles of Ham.
I think that's yours.
It's yours.
You get the Giles of Ham, Tim. There's Broadcast Talks and the Prom of Pain on the table.
So I already have multiple copies of Problem of Pain.
Okay.
And Andy, I think you should have Broadcast Talks. So I think Problem of Pain should go to Tim.
Okay, I'm down with that.
You want this one?
Tim?
Oh, you have that one too.
The Problem of Pain? Do you have any interest?
I'll take the Problem of Pain.
Okay.
You read the thing on by Charles Williams, and then you let me borrow it.
Do you know how deep this is? I already scanned through a little bit. This is a deep book. Reason and Beauty in the Poetic Mind.
Well, hey, wait. Maybe we do this. Maybe, okay, you got an inkling. I got 2 inklings. I feel like I'm making out like a bandit here.
Well, Williams is an inkling.
I'm okay with sharing these around a little bit too.
Maybe that one gets passed.
This one's going to be a deep one. His section, What is Beauty?
That's a book for Josh Boyd.
Oh, he's a Thinkling.
He is.
Maybe we reach out to Boyd. Well, I would say this is almost how I thought it was going to go. I thought for sure you'd want Silver Trumpet, and I knew you'd want
Tolkien. I would. Had I not already owned Silver Trumpet, I would absolutely want Silver Trumpet.
The map in the back, I don't even want to tell my kids about that. They're going to open that thing up and rip it.
I think that's the most like genuinely fun moment we've had in a long time, where it's like, oh wait, Andy, you know about the map? Like, what do you mean the map? Like, yeah, right there on the back, unfold that. And it's like,
that was, listener, here, okay. So
did you notice what that was, by the way?
No.
Like their little castle's all a piano.
Are you serious?
If you open
It looked like a picture more than a map. So he called it a map, and I'm like, it looks like a picture.
It is, but it's like the characters, and like I think it's supposed to be like where they live, but I don't know if it is for sure.
Okay.
Oh, you're kidding. It's a piano.
It's really cool.
Oh, the kids are we have a piano, not like exactly like this, but we have an upright piano.
And then it's got the numbered stuff on the sides where it's like,
oh man, I don't even want to show them this.
I thought it was supposed to be like kind of like a mappy of like where, like the kingdom of where they're at.
Wow, that is so fun.
Yeah, Mountain Castle.
Yeah.
Well, I will say we don't let our kids play on the piano, but now they're going to want to.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. And whoever this person is,
Dr. Videa.
Thank you, Dr. Videa.
Thank you. Yes.
And hey, listeners, if any of you find Inklings books, you're like, hey, I bet the Thinklings like that. Feel free to send it in, because it's kind of a fun episode. So that's our books and business. I'll say one thing, and then we're gonna have a thought from God's word. I wish you could be in the room with us. Like, these are difficult days. We have a lot going on in our lives. But we've gathered, most of us are drinking coffee. Tim's still kind of getting over a cold. And what are we doing? We're just delighting in books. Mm-hmm. It's fun. And there is a good and beautiful thing about this. And so normally we say something right now about you should go and find yourself a group and do this. Mm-hmm. But I have another way to think about this, listener. You're already doing this, I bet. So where in your life is something good and beautiful to you, even if it's sinful and an idol that you love, you're going to find something in your life that's good and beautiful that you think is, and you're going to lean into that. Mm-hmm. And so if you're like, yeah, I really should get a group of friends who are godly Christians, and I should push each other to, even if you don't do that, you're going to spend time doing something. You're going to find online friends. You're going to find online lives. You're going to find groups at work, and you're going to find someone to fill this kind of a void. And I think the scriptures would be really clear. You need to put believers in your life, even if it's just to get together and talk about silly books that you're all interested in. So even though this is just a fun thing, I do think there's a biblical thought here for you to think about. But on that note, let's get into a thought from God's word, Charlie.
Yeah. So we're going to look at two passages. One is from the Old Testament, one is from the New Testament. And then we're going to have, pun intended, we're going to have something that ties them together. Okay. So if you remember going way, 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 way back to some of the beginning podcasts that we had, there's this little quote from C.S. Lewis about friendship. And we've got it on the back of our shirts. I've got it on all have it on our mugs. And it's that the little knots of friends who turn their backs on the world are those who really transform it. And there's a passage in 2 Timothy, starting in verse 3 and 4, but share in the suffering as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. No soldier gets entangled with civilian affairs that he may please the one who enlists him. And I'm going to talk about this next week at a camp in Nebraska. And so Whispering Cedars friends, if you're listening to this, you are going to hear this or have heard this at camp. But what is to be tangled? And I'm actually going to take a fishing pole. And I'm like, look how this works. You know, you can cast it. It works really nice when everything is in order. But if I tangle it all up, it doesn't work anymore. And so it's a clear picture. Like, a soldier doesn't get all tangled up, mucked up with the things of the world so that he can please the commander, which in this case is Christ. It's God who's called Timothy into ministry. And so think about it this way. What's the difference between a tangle and a knot? Because it's both a piece of line. It's both like all put together, secure. Like it's hard to untangle a tangle. It's hard to untie a knot. One is intentional and one's really not. And one's really,
I was going to say,
not. And it just, puns abound. But so you think about not being entangled. And what Andy just mentioned is you're going to fill this part of your life with something. If you don't have good friends, the reality is you probably have bad friends. Or if you're not reading books with your friends, you're probably doing other things with your friends. And that's not to say that we can't enjoy the gifts of earthly life. We can't have fun, that you have to be a monk and all you can do is read books and, wake up, and study. Like there's more to life than that. But you also need to be intentional here, because if you're not,
oh my word, there's so many not funs.
If you're not being intentional with your friends, you're probably getting tangled with some friends, and you're probably getting mucked up into things that maybe they're not wrong, but they're certainly not what's best for you. And I'll use myself as a negative example here. I had great friends in high school, college. There's a lot of, maybe I don't think the word friend is the right word for them. A lot of companions, compatriots, and like Lewis in The Four Loves, it's like, oh, hey, you like that too? And we had a lot of bonds over some really silly things. Like we like the same TV shows. We like the same video games. We like the same sports teams. And you can pour hours into things like that with people that like it too. And you can have lots of fun with that. And you probably should from time to time. Those are good things. But you really want to tie yourself to good friends. You want to have a clump of friends that are committed to the right things, to the best things, to the excellent things. And that's where we come to that verse in the Old Testament. And I think what's unique about a friend is they're actually, I think, more special than family. So Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. And you think about what's the difference between, what's the comparison being made here? So a brother, if you ever heard the phrase like blood's thicker than water, right?
Yes.
And so when something's really going wrong, your family's obligated to be there. Like if I really needed something and I need someone to be there, I could call my brother, my mom, and I know they're going to help. There's a familial requirement or obligation. And we know that. And that's what makes a friend so unique. It's because they actually don't have that obligation to you. There is no familial or biological bond. A real true friend sticks with you even when they don't have to. Like they've willfully taken upon themselves to bind themselves to you. And I think the proverb is telling you that that's really special. The friend loves you at all times, and he didn't have to, and I think I think an interesting study would be the word friend through the book of Proverbs. But so the idea here is of having good friendships, and one, being a good friend. Like have people in your life that you're willing to love at all times willfully. And like, it's not because you're getting something from them, but people that are in your life that you're willing to serve, and you're going to be there for them. And it's not an obligation in the sense of you're their brother or, sibling, family member, then you have to be there. Like you should be a good friend to people. And you should also want to have friends like that in your life, that not because of what they get from you, but because they just genuinely love you, that they're willing to serve you. And that they're going to be there when, it gets really tough. And so we need those types of relationships in our lives to encourage us spiritually. And God knows that. I think it's really interesting that Jesus, at the end of his life, what does he tell his disciples? You're my friend. You're not like a servant who doesn't know what the master's doing. Like we're friends. And we do need relationships like that. And that's really the whole backdrop of our little group, is to be good friends to each other and read good books with our friends and talk about them with our friends. And so it's a simple idea there. We can sit here and we can have a lot of fun looking at old books and talking about, silver trumpets and, drinking coffee together. And that's fun. But you want someone in your life when it's not fun, and a friend does that. A friend loves at all times, and he doesn't have to, and that's why a friend is so awesome. And so you should look for good friends in your life that are going to stir your affections for Christ. You should look for a little group of people, probably in your church, but if it's not in your church, that's okay too. And people who are going to point you to Christ and encourage you towards Christ and his word when you need it, not when you want it, but when you need it. And I think I had a lot of friends in my life that were, friends in italics, where it's sure we'll go do these random things together, but when life really gets hard, who's there? And when I really need someone to tell me something, who's going to tell me that thing? And when I really need to be encouraged or reminded of something, and I don't want to be encouraged or reminded, who's going to do that? And that's what a good friend is for. So be a good friend, look for good friends, and once you found them, you should read some good books and talk about them. And so hopefully that's encouraging to you. I want that to be a challenge to you to not entangle yourself in this world, do all the things that our world says friends should do. I think you do need to, as Lewis says, I think you and your friends need to turn your back from this world. And you need to bond to one another, and you need to bond to truth and encourage each other that way. So thank you for listening this week. We're thankful for you. You guys are our friends as listeners, and we'll see you next week on the Thinklings podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Thinklings podcast. We would love to hear from you. If you have any feedback, suggestions, or potential topics that you'd like us to discuss, you can contact us through our email, thinklingspodcast@gmail.com. Remember, don't let this conversation end with this podcast. Read good books, talk about them with your friends, and always continue to cultivate your mind. See you next time on the Thinklings podcast. The Thinklings want to remind our listeners that the Thinklings podcast is our personal production. Our conversations, book discussions, and viewpoints may not represent the views of Faith Baptist Bible College and Theological Seminary. Any questions or feedback should be directed to us at the Thinklings podcast.